What's going on, guys? It's Mukai here with the Lions Den podcast, and today we're hanging out with KB Bhullar, crazy, good MMA fighter. He's got a big fight coming up this Friday, Unified MMA. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Happy to be here, bro.
Oh yeah, glad to have you here. So before we get rocking, I gotta ask, man, what does KB stand for?
Oh, man. $1 million question. Dude, let's just say if we had name tags right now, this name tag would wrap like around my chest. It would go around my chest. KB stands for. You ready?
I'm ready, man.
Okay. You're not gonna even believe me.
I'm having a hard time believing you right now.
It stands for Kanwar Ajit, Resham, Manmohan, Karamchand, Ritik Roshan.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Oh shit.
You know what's the worst?
Yeah.
You know what's the worst part is that my brother's name's Kenny.
Yeah, I know Kenny.
My dad's name's Tony.
Oh.
And my mom's name's Pammy. So we had these immigrant East Indian parents that came over to Canada. They named one kid Kenny, and then just to fuck over the other one.
Yeah.
Kanwarjit Resham, Manmohan, Karamchand Singh, Ritik Roshan.
Oh fuck, dude, that's like a grocery list, man.
Dude.
Shit, they made up for everybody on that name.
It's hard.
They made up for everybody on that name.
It's hard growing up with that name.
Hey, listen, it's a good thing you can kick mad ass now, though. Nobody's making
I think that's why I had to start kicking ass. Because you can't go through the attendance list in grade 1 with fucking Betty, Andrew, Katie, Charlie, and Kanwarjit Singh, Manmohan, Karamchand Singh, Ritik Roshan.
I bet your teacher just looked at it and said, "Hey, can we call you something else?"
It's the worst, dude. I just put up my hand and be like, peasant.
Dude, that's killer, man. I like it, man. But give me some background on you, man. Because I remember when I was still fighting, I remember seeing you come up, and then I was like, "Where is this guy from?" Like, you had the crazy kicks, right? Like, because I remember you did a couple fights, and then you got off the scene. Like, what's your martial arts background, man? When did you start training?
Oh, I grew up with my background in Taekwondo.
Nice.
And
great
so, but to tell you the truth, like I always, like I did Taekwondo for a bit, and then my coach at the time, like he started fighting in the MFC, and then as he began preparing for MMA fights, like I wanted to know what that was, so I got this generalist training like since I was 14, like it was just dibble dabbling a bit in everything, but never having like an anchored root in one specific discipline. I learned the Taekwondo curriculum, but I was always just like generally exposed to mixed martial arts since the age of like 13 to 14.
Nice. Who's your coach? Like, which coach was it?
My coach was this guy, unremarkable fighter. His name was Mike Tubbs. But like he was not a good fighter.
Yeah.
But like he just gave me that exposure at that age to help me become good, I guess.
Yeah. Well, usually, sometimes that's all it takes, man. You need somebody just to show you something, and then the rest is up to you. Because I find people think a coach needs to be this like grand master who kicks everyone's ass and is like can do every move. But really, I find sometimes the best coaches are the guys who can just inspire you to be good. You know what I mean?
This interesting thing about this coach was like that. I don't think he inspired me to be good, but he just like. He made my, like, growing up as a kid, like, he made my life, like, hard. Like, he taught me, like, the value of, like, just toughness.
Yeah.
The practices were very, they're extremely hard, man. Just, like, rigorous, hard practices. And at a young age, as a young man growing up, I think that teaches you discipline.
Big time.
But, like, he was, like, when I look back at it, like, long story short, he was an almost, I would say, abusive coach. I wouldn't want my kid going through that.
Him.
But it hardwired me to like have that in me later on. So now, like I can have that mental discipline and toughness.
Yeah. So you turned a bit of a gray cloud to find the silver lining in it. So
exactly.
It was like, yeah. That's a good thing, man. I think as long as you can find the good in something, that's always a great way to come out of a situation.
Yeah.
So aside from martial arts, like what else? Like, what else have you done with your life, man? Like, have you done any schooling? Like, what's your thing?
I did do. I went to university as soon as I got out of high school. I told my parents that I either wanted to get into medicine or like business or something. I just did some generalized direction of where I wanted to go because everyone in high school was doing that. And my heart, though, was in fighting. My heart was always in fighting.
Right.
And then I went through university, and then I did 3 years of my sciences degree. And I completely stopped 3 years in and then just focused on fighting. I had a long talk with my parents. I was like, look, like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I started fighting, completely dropped school for a bit, and then went back to school. But this time was like, I don't want to do sciences anymore. So then I did my business degree. I got my Bachelor of Commerce in accounting and finance.
That's awesome, bro.
And then, yeah, I did the education just to make them happy.
Right.
Like, look, we got this piece of paper that says I can do something, but even now I feel like I don't even remember most of it. But like,
yeah,
like they're happy now, so now it's just I entirely focus on fighting.
That's awesome, man. Like that's great because you don't hear a lot of people who take the time to do that. You know, to say, well, this means a lot to my parents, and you know, culturally, it's you know, you did something to make them happy, and then you know, they got off your back, and then you were able to do exactly what you want to do with your time in your life. Right? That's dope, man.
Well, the funny thing was that once I got that degree,
Yeah,
my dad was like, KB, why the fuck you are doing this degree? You're a fighter.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, Dad. I was like, kind of like trying to piece it together. I'm like, what the fuck is my dad telling me right now? And then he's like, KB, Kenny is a businessman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You are a fighter. You're not meant for this office bullshit. And then I was like, I got a job at like a prestigious firm, and I was working there, and he saw me coming home every day, bringing work home, and he was like, one day he saw me sitting there, and he was like, KB, fuck Ernst, fuck Young, fuck them both. You're not gonna do this bullshit. You need to fight, man. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like I started like putting it together in my mind, because every day I come back from work and I go straight to train.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I wanted to do.
That's good, man.
And
Your
then,
dad should be a fucking motivational coach for every fighter, man. Fuck this, fuck that, go fucking fight.
He was just like, dude, yeah, he made it that simple. He was like, do what you're meant to do.
Right.
And then having your own father like sit you down and be like, you know, like, I see it in you. You were meant to do this.
Right.
He's like, I see it in you. You're making yourself miserable doing this every day. He's like, you have more to give back to the world, doing what you're passionate about, rather than like just having a simple, secure
career,
existence,
job, whatever. Yeah.
With like this linear trajectory that's
it's not even upward
entirely
like that a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's very much so like you have MMA, which is like the complete opposite of security and balance. And then you had like accounting, and it was like, holy shit, the most safe, boring existence in the world. And that's what drove me insane.
Yeah.
Was like, you are what you surround yourself with, the people
big
you
time,
surround yourself with. And I found myself on the day-to-day, I'm like, I'm not these people.
No, 100%, man. It's good you're able to see that, because there's a lot of people who've forsaken what they're supposed to do in order to try and find, you know, whatever society deems a normal career and is safe. But really, man, I find even those career paths aren't necessarily safe, because they're only safe as long as, you know, the organization you're working within is able to effectively execute what they need to do. But otherwise, like, especially in today's economy in Alberta, there's lots of businesses going out of business that were around for a while, that, you know, where people thought they were safe and they're not safe anymore. So, I mean, you might as well do whatever you like, the thing that really drives you and fuels you, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's
what you did.
That's where my headspace was at. I was like,
I like that, man.
I was like, I'm doing my soul the biggest injustice by not giving this everything I got.
Right. And that's what it comes down to, I find, man, giving everything you got, because I had a similar story to yours, but the only difference is I dropped right out of school and never went back. Mm-hmm. That was the only difference. But I think it was because I was older, because I remember looking at it and saying, man, I started martial arts when I was 23. And I was like, yeah, I started late, man. I started so late. I know, I fucked some shit up.
I never worked on it. Yeah.
I started so late. So to me, I was like, okay, if I keep doing, if I finish school, I'm not gonna do this other thing effectively enough. So I made a decision to say, okay, you know what? I gotta stop school, because I'd already done 3 years. And I was like, fuck it, man, I gotta stop school and I gotta go this other direction. But I find it helped me though, having that strategic kind of um process kind of in my mind and being taught like a formal education. Because
Yeah.
when you start like university, in your first year, second year, third year, it changes and it gradually gets harder, and you have to learn different skills to get through it. Like you have to learn analytical skills, research, date, like everything. You have to learn everything. And I found it made fighting and navigating that world a lot easier for me. So all of a sudden, I had the strategic kind of mindset. I was analytical. I could look at things and make a good decision versus not being analytical and just making an emotional decision. You know what I mean? And I even in fighting, like technically, I find it wired my mind differently to be like I was able to look at martial arts technique and the reason I learned it so quickly and break it down into something else. You know, to go, okay, jab represents this, a cross represents that, and then it was more mathematics for me to go like 1, 2, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, and then when mathematics goes from 0 to 9 and then double numbers, triple numbers, and I was using that as combinations. And then when you talk about more complex stuff, equations, shit like that, you know what I mean? And it worked. So I was able to grasp it quicker.
Dude, your fight against Adam Lynn, that was a straight equation, dude. You was like, you're a straight up Tekken character in that.
That was a great fight, man.
Shit.
Thank you,
awesome.
man. I appreciate that. But you see, ironically enough, I remember commentating on your fight versus Cody Kron in the Laos Unified. And that, to me, man, that was a crazy fight because I remember seeing Cody Kron come out of that fight, and he was at the best I've ever seen him.
Yeah, he came in great shape.
He was in great shape. Like he had lost weight. Like he had to hit the mark for the weigh in. He was in great shape. Like physically, he was there. Technically, his technique was great. I remember he caught you with a couple great shots, and he's a heavy hitter. So it was very good to watch like a young, talented fighter fight a veteran who was at his best, right?
Yeah, it was cool to, like you said, like fight him at his best. Because
Yeah.
I really felt like he brought it that camp and he worked hard.
Oh, he worked his ass off.
He came in, I'm like, damn, Cody's jacked.
He trained for that fight, dude. I remember watching. I was like,
yoked.
Yeah, man. Because I remember looking at it. I was like, at first I was like, yeah, Cody Kron, he's a gamer, and you got a young up and comer, and I thought it was gonna be like one of those where it's like, okay, it's the older gentleman fighting the younger guys. It's in the bag. But when I saw him, I was like, holy shit, man.
He came in.
We've got a great fight here. He was ready, man. And I remember like he caught you with some great shots, and I find fights like that are the ones that make or break a fighter.
Yeah.
To get caught with some really heavy leather, and you get in a place where you have to decide what you're gonna do next. Am I gonna back down from this challenge, or am I gonna step up and hit a home run?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
dude, you stepped up and hit a home run, man. That was a prolific fight. So hats off to you, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
So after that win, like what's next for you, man? What's going on? You got this crazy fight coming up against a UFC veteran, probably the toughest opponent you've ever fought. Like, what's that looking like, man? It's 1 week away, and you're here. Like, what's the deal with that?
Well, we're taking on Matt Dwyer for the middleweight championship.
That's awesome.
I mean,
man.
Matt himself, like you said, probably my toughest opponent to date.
Yeah.
He possesses an interesting challenge for me just because he's got similar physical dimensions.
Right.
And he's got grit, toughness, tenacity. He's makes good use of his length.
Right.
But I just think I'm different. I think I'm different in the sense that, like, I don't think anybody can stop my vision right now. Like, I just feel like I've hit a stride and I have the momentum on my side.
Right.
Like, there's that snowball effect, man.
Yeah.
And it's rolling for me.
That's awesome, man. I find it interesting that you use the word vision. Like, nobody can stop my vision. Like, what is your vision? Like, how do you see this going for you? Like, what's your goal with this whole MMA thing? Like, I find a lot of people come at it with like, I'll get whatever I get kind of approach. Like, what's your take on it? What's the vision?
Well, my vision is that I want to be the best in the world. Like, this is why I want to do it.
Yes, I like that, man.
Like, I can't half-ass anything in my life
right
anymore at all. Like, I always went through wondering, like, what could I do with this thing? And then the results you got before with me, they were still good.
Yeah.
I was a good fighter, but that was me, like, still in school, like, just being a kid.
Right.
But now as a man, like, maturing and thinking, like, you reach a stage where, what do you want to do with your life? And this is what I want to do. I want to be a master at my craft.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a fighter, like, I I know I just possess that imaginative ability to just conjure this up and bring this vision to life. I know I can do it. I just gotta prove it now. And I'm excited to be at that stage to just do it full force.
Yeah, that's good, man. And you hit an interesting kind of point there when you talk about being a man versus being a boy. And I find there's lots of guys who can't make that transition. You know, to say like we think that magically at 18 everyone becomes a man. You know, but it's really not the fact. You know what I mean? Like it's good that you talked about being a man and making your own decisions and articulating your own vision to the world, and that's kind of what you want. And I find that's rare, especially in MMA fighters across the board. Actually, I mean, I find a lot of people are doing it just because maybe that's all they have.
Yeah.
Whereas you gave up something to go pursue this, and they don't have a vision attached to it. They just have like a fight by fight basis, or I just want to get in the UFC. It's like, well, that's not really a vision. That's like the beginning of another journey. If you just want to get in the UFC, what happens when you get in the UFC?
I think that's
You know what I
like the
mean?
same as like people that say like you just want to get your black belt or something.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
And then what?
No. It's like you're missing the point.
Yeah.
You know, like we're involved in like the most like brutal sport in the world, so I understand
Big
like
time.
when people have like I guess like a half-hearted aspiration. But if you're gonna do something like this,
Yep.
then you have to approach it with the respect that it deserves,
Right.
and it deserves your full attention.
Well said, man. I like that.
I think that as a kid, like I was talented, but I always fell back on my talent, and now the difference is that mentally, like I'm valuing the hard work.
Right.
Like I'm seeing the work, the amount of like true dedication it takes to like make like what does greatness require?
Right.
You know? And it requires like it requires a lot of sacrifice. Like I haven't seen my friends in months.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
relationships fall apart. Like
Yep.
you really like have this sport becomes what you're married to. Like it swallows up my
Married to the game.
it swallows up my whole mind, my soul,
Yeah.
my body. I have to give it everything I have.
Yeah.
And like it breaks you sometimes, man. It really does. It's hard.
I hear you, man.
But-
But I think the reason it's like that is because for you, like you said, it's a vision, it's a mission, it's a life goal. You know what I mean? And I find once you have a life goal, usually it does take you, by the reins like that, and it leads you somewhere, and you understand what's important and what's not important. Like the other day I was talking about like specificity, being specific with your intent. And I find a lot of people aren't specific to go. If you're, there's people who may be as talented as you are, but there's a lot of distractions that come up, and because they're not, eyes on the prize and know what the goal is, it's very easy to kind of go off to the left or to the right or whatever direction where your distractions in, because you don't have a clear vision set up. You're not specific about your intent. And I find, like you said, you have to sacrifice things, and people don't understand the concept of sacrifice. To say like things cost something, and cost isn't always money.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice a relationship. You have to sacrifice hanging out with your friends. You know what I mean? And that's great, man. That's awesome.
It's like it comes down to, for me, it was
Yeah.
I had to ask myself like, what in life? Like in life, you're gonna suffer, but like,
Right.
what are you willing to suffer for?
Right.
And
Life-
if it's like that desk job that's secure and cushy and helps you provide money for your family, which all glory to you. I respect that too.
Yep.
But is it something else? Do you have something grander for yourself in store?
Right, like a bigger vision for yourself. Like, are you asking for more from yourself and from the world, or are you just getting by with what people or the world decides to give you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I think it's a great philosophy, and I think you're gonna go far with that. Now, having put that into perspective, now, like, you've come a long way in a very short time, relatively. And it's interesting to now it makes sense, because before I was always like, I remembered you being like the young guy who kind of had a fight or two, disappeared, came back and just started crushing dudes, and now you're at the point where you're one of the most talked about fighters in the country. You know what I mean? Not just the problem, like in the country. Like I remember reading an article where, people were discussing whether you're one of the top unsigned prospects in the country. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a relatively short time that took you to achieve that. Like How does that feel? To go from being like, for example, 14-year-old KB, training with,
Yeah.
I forget the dude's name because that dude sounds like an asshole.
Dude is an asshole.
Training with that asshole, and then here you are today. What's the feeling that comes with that? And what's next?
If I self-reflect and I think about the growth, then I'm proud of that. I'm proud to look back on myself and see the growth that I've made. But I don't want to get too attached to any like little mini successes that I may be having.
Right.
Because I feel like you get attached to the little bits of success and then you don't want to grow anymore. You get complacent.
Right.
I find the darkest part of my mind is with 2 weeks after winning a fight and I'm sitting there in a Dairy Queen with like 3 poutines in my mouth on the side with like a couple blizzards, and then I look around and I'm like, oh my God, it's my 3rd time I'm here today.
Today,
I'm like,
fuck, dude.
I'm like, what am I
3
doing?
times in a day.
I'm like, what am I doing?
You're like the Dairy Queen champ,
I'm like,
too.
Jeez,
Man.
I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here, get hit with a credit card statement, and it's like just Dairy Queen, Dairy Queen, Dairy Queen, Dairy
That's
Queen.
priceless, man. You're making up a lost time out here.
No. I need to get out. I need to get out of this. I need to get out of this bubble, and then that's when you get back to training.
Yeah. That's good though, man. That's good. You can navigate that, right? Because I find that's where a lot of fighters suffer. They suffer in sacrificing the little things because
you get addicted to celebration.
Yeah, man. You know, like it's easy to say, well, fuck, I just knocked the guy out in like inside of 1 or 2 rounds. Like I can eat as much Dairy Queen as I want. You know what I mean? I can have a couple drinks. I can stay out a little bit late, and then 2 months later, you're like, holy
For
shit.
a bit you can, but like you can't. Like when you reach that sad state, when you look inside the Dairy Queen and like the fat people are looking at you weird. Like, because they see you, like, they know that you've been here, like, fucking 4 times this week.
Yeah,
then you gotta be like, I had to check myself. I'm like weird. You got,
I gotta think this
strawberry
over.
cheesecake dribbling down your beard. It's like, yo, this is
don't
bad.
kill me, dude. That's priceless, man. Shit. Hey, you have, like, now you know where to take this motherfucker. You're going on a date or something.
Oh, man.
Dairy Queen, you went on that.
There you go.
That's dope, man. But
there
like,
you go.
So advice you give to young up and coming fighters, because now like I find it's good to give back, and you're in a position where people look up to you now, and as they should. Like you've done a lot for yourself in a relatively short time, and with this trajectory, like personally, I see you being like one of the top fighters in the world inside of 3 to 5 years if you stay on the trajectory. Because I mean, like, you have the characteristics. You got the height, you got the reach, you got the martial arts acumen. You know what I mean? You've got the drive and determination. You've got the direction. So like. What's some advice you'd give some young up and comers to kind of like KB's call notes on how to get to like the next stage of your fight career?
I think that's a good question.
Yeah, I have great questions.
I coach, and then I look at like a lot of the guys that I coach, and I coach primarily from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
But now, like, because I never really had that combative wisdom, but now, like, when I look at my students now, I want to tell them that, like, don't be fearful of losing and failure, because I think that's the biggest hindrance we have as fighters, is that oftentimes we get overly attached to the concept of winning and losing, and then we forget the attributes that it requires to be a winner. Creativity,
yes.
discipline, your imagination,
Yeah.
your that sense of flow, that feeling of like, when you think about yourself in the gym and your best performance in the gym you have, it's never the days where you're like coming into the gym thinking about like if you're going to get your ass kicked or not. It's about like when you're just, things are flowing, the technique is flowing.
Right.
And like focus on that.
Yeah.
And whether wins and losses come, don't think that you are your record.
Right.
Think about what it takes to win.
That's easy coming from a guy who's undefeated, dude.
But like I always growing up, I got so caught up in thinking about that record.
Yeah.
And then like when I had that hiatus from MMA and I started competing more and more in jiu-jitsu, like I lost a lot.
Yeah.
So like in my head, like I'm not undefeated. Like
Right.
I get my butt kicked in the gym by my teammates like all the time. But my coach is putting me through the ringer all the time. So I'm by no means like attached to the idea of being this undefeated fighter.
Yeah.
Like I face defeat every day.
Dude, that's great to hear, man. Because like most people don't look at it like that. Most people, like yeah, because I like that you put it like that because I when I was coaching, I'll tell people the same thing. They say, listen, like losing is a part of winning because the more you lose off the mat, like the actual mat in the ring or whatever, the ring or the cage, the more you're going to be able to win in the cage. You know what I mean? They say like,
Yeah.
and I like that you put it that way to go like everyone, like you're always challenging yourself in your practice, in your training, you know, and you lose in there, you know, and to me, I find like when you lose in any situation, you're now given a scenario where you can look at what made you lose, right? And come up with a takeaway. So to go, for example, if you're getting caught in arm bars a lot, you can figure out how to never get caught in that again.
Yeah.
And you never have to worry about it. But you have to get caught in it a bunch of times. Triangle chokes, whatever, getting caught with right crosses or whatever. I got to deal with that, move my head, whatever. So I like that you kind of spoke about that, man, because I think a lot of people get stuck on the never going, and then it becomes more of a crush versus that outlook where it's like, listen, the O is unimportant to keep. It's like I need to win and lose in different environments in order to continue winning in this other environment. That's dope, man.
You just own it, right? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need
yeah.
to own your defeat
Right.
in practice. The hard thing to do, I think, is if you own it in the ring or the cage, because then it's on stage in front of everyone.
Everybody gets to
and
see
we have
it.
we have the cruelest fans in the world, where like
Oh yeah, MMA fans are brutal, man.
people like to just people like to rip apart a fighter to bits.
MMA fans are
and
the
then
worst,
leave them
man.
there, build them up
Yeah.
and then tear them down.
Yeah, tear them right the fuck down.
But
That's
if you
dope,
can
man.
own it and be like, this is why this happened, and I can do this to work on it, then you can allow yourself to grow. So, you know, to people coming up, just keep that fire burning by having like a focus on the mastery of your art rather than the record that you possess, because that's what people will remember you by.
Right, how good you look. Yeah, and that's interesting, man, because like what the one thing you talked about the Adam Lynn fight I had. Like, I mean, I've won and lost a ton of fights. Like, I've lost some fights as a Muay Thai fighter, I've lost some fights as an MMA fighter. But you're right, man. Every time I run into people, they always talk about certain great fights they saw me have. And some people talk about that made them want to do martial arts, that made them want to do this, whatever. And that gives me a lot and I never worry about losing. So yeah, man, that's dope.
Dude, you look like Bruce Irvin in Tekken, the Muay Thai guy. Man, I before K-Drill, I didn't have a striking coach.
Yeah.
And so I taught myself a lot of stuff just
How to put
with
it together,
YouTube and Tekken.
Yeah.
And like I would just sit in the basement shadowboxing. I watched the Adam Lynn fight, and I'm like, oh my god, he just bang, bang, the knees.
Oh, don't get me
elbows,
hype, man. Don't get me
just
hype.
Art of eight
Yeah,
limbs on full display. So like
Thank you,
seeing
man.
that, like that, I like
Thank you,
watching
brother.
fighters like
Thank
you
you.
fight, because it was
Thank
like
you.
you
Thank
had
you.
that imagination.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
it wasn't like
Thank you, brother.
you know what, man? I hate watching fighters that are like blankets and they just kind of
Yeah, they're boring. That's the one thing I dislike is being a boring fighter, and thank you for that. But yeah, creativity and using imagination is huge. And ultimately, I think it's about self-expression. Express yourself and showcase what you've learned. And it's good that you like training with Kedro, man. That guy's a great striking coach, great pad holder, great guy to have in your corner as a man who's helping you get from point A to point B. So definitely wish you best of luck in all your upcoming stuff.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man, looking forward to watching you kick some ass on Friday.
Thank you, brother. Thank
All
you
right,
so
brother.
much.
Thanks for coming through.
No worries. Thank you, man.
It's been a pleasure, brother.
Thank you.